President Trump standing with Saudi Arabia after the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, saying we may never know all the facts surrounding his gruesome death. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. As Harris Faulkner just mentioned, Secretary Pompeo is at the podium at the State Department. Let's listen in.
Diplomatic efforts, our sustained implementation of UN sanctions, and the inter-Korean cooperation. And finally, I just left the meeting with Turkish Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu today. I welcome the positive momentum in our relationship following the release of Pastor Brunson and urged reopening additional channels to address issues of mutual concern. We are still greatly concerned about Turkey's continued unjust detention of U.S. locally employed staff and citizens, including NASA scientist Serkan Gölge. We also discussed the Khashoggi case and the need to work together to de-escalate conflict in Syria, support the reinvigoration of the UN-led peace process, and achieve a peaceful, lasting solution to the Syrian conflict. With that, I'm happy to take a few questions.
I'll call on questions. Mr. Secretary, one of the things that the President points to in his statement is a $110 billion arms initiative. But by the State Department's own record, in October, only $14.5 billion has come through. When do you expect to see the rest of the money from that arms agreement?
Some of these contracts, the defense contracts in particular, are complex, lengthy contract negotiations. We are working diligently on the remainder of those. We actually hope that number will end up being even greater. I couldn't tell you when those negotiations will conclude, but we are very hopeful that each of those commitments that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia made to the United States to purchase equipment will be completed in a timely fashion.
Michelle Galvera.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Secretary, based on the President's statement, moving forward, the relations with Saudi Arabia won't be affected by the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, and how can you differentiate between the kingdom and the crown prince?
Yeah. So it's a mean, nasty world out there. The Middle East in particular, there are important American interests to keep the American people safe, to protect Americans, not only Americans who are here, but Americans who are traveling and working, doing business in the Middle East. It is the President's obligation, indeed the State Department's duty as well, to ensure that we adopt policies that further America's national security. So as the President said today, the United States will continue to have a relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're an important partner of ours. We will do that with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, its people. That is the commitment that the President made today. It's that straightforward. By the way, this is a long, historic commitment and one that is absolutely vital to America's national security. We are determined to ensure that we continue to make sure that we take care of the American people in all of the strategic decisions we make about with whom we work around the world.
Michelle with NPR.
So one quick follow-up on that and then a question on Iran. So does the America First agenda mean putting U.S. business interests ahead of human rights concerns? And then on Iran, have you considered any specific actions, specific sanctions to pressure Iran to release the American citizens who are held there?
Hey, try taking your second question first.
Yep.
We are engaged every day, literally every day, in working to return every U.S. citizen who is either wrongfully detained or a hostage somewhere around the world. That certainly includes Bob Levinson and all those that are being held by the Iranian regime. We're determined to get them back. As President Trump has made very clear, we're not going to pay a price for their return, but we're prepared to work with all those who can assist us in getting those Americans returned to their families and returned here to our country. Your other question is best answered by talking about what we have already done. There has been an enormous effort with respect to fact-finding pertaining to the death, the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. A lot of U.S. resources have been devoted to determining the facts to the best of our ability to determine precisely what happened there. The United States took a very strong response. We have sanctioned 17 individuals in connection with that investigation. We are at the same time committed to making sure that we place America's national security interests and all the actions that take place in the context of doing the right thing to make sure that America continues to thrive and grow. And when we do that, the world is better off for it too, and the Middle East is better off as well.
Ben from NHK.
Yeah, you mentioned Steve Biegun's meeting with his South Korean counterpart. I just wanted to ask, what's the message he's going to be sending as far as what the U.S. government would like to see South Korean government do as far as coordinating their inter-Korean efforts and the denuclearization efforts?
So I think there's complete agreement between the South Koreans and us with respect to how this should proceed. We now have a working group that formalizes those processes so that we can be sure that we don't talk past each other, that we don't take an action or the South Koreans don't take an action that the other is unaware of or hasn't had a chance to comment on or provide their thoughts. And that's the purpose of the working group that's being led on our side by Stephen Biegun. We have made clear to the Republic of Korea that we do want to make sure that that peace on the peninsula and the denuclearization of North Korea aren't lagging behind the increase in the amount of interrelationship between the two Koreas. We view them as tandem, as moving forward together. We view them as important parallel processes, and that working group is designed to make sure they continue to remain that way.
And a final question, CNN.
Hi, Secretary Pompeo. You mentioned you're gathering all these facts. Does the president's statement today mean that that fact-finding segment is over? And have you seen the assessment he is expected to get today?
I can't comment on intelligence matters. I'd direct you to the DNI, Director Coates, or to the CIA to talk about particular intelligence issues. Facts will obviously still continue to come to light. I'm confident of that. It's the way the world works.
And as these facts come to light, will you pursue further actions against whoever, even if it does show culpability?
We have been unambiguous with respect to how we have treated the data set that we have been able to get. When America has the information it needs, it will, of course, do the right thing to protect American interests. And we have done so every time.
How can you trust the Saudis if there's so much disinformation?
As well, the question, the Prime Minister Saad Hariri said that they are as well as not with the government.
All right, that was Secretary Mike Pompeo at the State Department doing a little press conference there with making some news, especially on Saudi Arabia and a little bit on North Korea as well. John Roberts is live at the White House. John, I wanted to bring you in here because this news dropped just about a few minutes ago. The president, as we understand it, and Mike Pompeo just confirmed, the president had not yet received the assessment from the intelligence community, but he put out the statement beforehand. Is that correct?
He certainly seemed to get out ahead of anything that comes out of the intelligence community. You know, he pardoned the Thanksgiving turkey a few minutes ago. It looks like at about the same time he was pardoning the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Here's what the president said in a statement that clearly came from his own hand. Quote, King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman vigorously deny any knowledge of the planning or execution of the murder of Mr. Khashoggi. Our intelligence agencies continue to assess all information, but it could be very well that the Crown Prince had not knowledge of this tragic event. Maybe he did, and maybe he didn't. The president adding, quote, we may never know all of the facts surrounding the murder of Mr. Jamal Khashoggi. But in the statement, the president said that he did not want to risk the relationship, the important strategic and economic relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia. The president also pointed to the fact that 17 Saudis have already been targeted for U.S. sanctions, Saudis who are believed to be involved in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. And the president also seemed to go some distance to impugning the the word I'm grasping for, basically impugning Jamal Khashoggi, also in the statement saying representatives of Saudi Arabia, his reputation, that's the word I'm looking for, representatives of Saudi Arabia say Jamal Khashoggi was an enemy of the state and a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but my decision is in no way based on that. This is an unacceptable and horrible crime. The president also recognized that Congress is probably going to want to look into all of this, but the president saying that he will look at the recommendations from Congress, quote, only if they are consistent with the absolute security and safety of America. And the president saying that Saudi Arabia continues to be, quote, a great ally. So it looks, Dana, even though the final assessment from the intelligence community is not in, that the president has already made his determination that bin Salman may or may not have been involved, but it likely isn't going to go any further than it has already.
It's one of those things where a president has to make a very tough call and then has to communicate it in a way that he thinks will work. He has several different audiences. A president, whenever he's speaking, you're talking to the Saudis, certainly, the broader Middle East. You're talking to your allies. You're talking to your military. You're talking to your cabinet. You're talking to the American people. You're talking to the businesses. What Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, kept coming back to in his press conference was that the United States president has an obligation to protect the United States, to protect the people of the United States that might be working overseas, and that you have to take that extremely seriously, even if you have a situation as complex as this one. But I think that what Mike Pompeo is trying to say is, yeah, it's a tough call. It's not always the one that you necessarily would have made if you didn't have all of these other considerations to have to consider.
Yeah, you know, and the question was actually very pointed and well framed. The question was, are you putting the interests of American corporations above the interests of human rights? And then the Secretary of State went on to say that, look, we've got to consider what the reality of the situation is here. The Middle East is a dangerous place, and the United States has to have a very strong ally in the region, and Saudi Arabia is one of those allies. And so you have to make the calculation as to what you're going to do based on the relationship that you need to have with such an important strategic ally. So it looks, Dana, for the moment at least, that this is going to be sanctions against the 17 Saudis who were named by the Treasury Department the other day, and likely isn't going to extend to the Saudi leadership.
John, do you know if those 17 that are targeted for sanctions, if it overlaps with the 12 that the Saudis have said that they might put on the executioner's block?
I believe it does, yes. I mean, I don't remember all of the names, a few of them, but I believe there is overlap there.
Let me also ask you this about the president seems to have a very good relationship with Gina Haspel, the CIA director. Remember, of course, Mike Pompeo sent immediately to Saudi Arabia. Gina Haspel sent directly to Turkey. And then coming back, she's going forward and putting out their assessment, and that's what the intelligence community can do. They can, here's our assessment, and the president can take it or leave it. It is an interesting decision. Not a bad one, maybe, from a strategic point of view, for the president to say, look, I'm going to have to make this decision regardless of what this report says because of the decisions that we have to make as commander-in-chief. It might not be the one that you and I would make, but, John, you and I don't have those responsibilities.
No, we don't. And you know, this, again, is going to put the president in a position, if the CIA, as expected, comes out. You know, the New York Times had an article the other day saying that the CIA has concluded that Mohammed bin Salman ordered either the abduction of Jamal Khashoggi and or his murder. And so if the president does not accept the CIA's findings in terms of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, that puts him in the position again of disagreeing with his own intelligence community, as he did so many times over whether or not Russia was involved in trying to influence the outcome of the election.
All right, John Roberts, I know you just had the Turkey pardoning, and then this happened all at once, so a fairly busy news day this Tuesday. Thank you, John.